Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast. And after a long hiatus, I'd like to welcome back to the show the co-host of the show and the owner of PackYourPixieDust.com travel. Welcome back to the show, Christy. How are you?
Hi, I'm well. How are you?
Not too bad. It's good to hear your voice. And you have been gone for quite some time on vacation. And then, of course, when you get back, you got to pay for it and get caught up at work, don't you?
I did have to pay for it. There was a little bit I was like, was this worth it? But it was worth it.
But I'm pretty excited. So we are going to go over your Panama Canal cruise. 15 days on the Wonder, going on the westbound version of the Panama Canal. And I guess just before we jump into it, give us your initial thoughts. How was it?
We loved it. We all loved it. My mom went with us in her own cabin. And then it was my husband and my son, who will be 5 in a month, so just shy of 5. And then myself, obviously. And we all loved it. It never felt too long. We actually kind of wish we had a couple more days at the end because we ran out of time. Which, how do you do that? Yeah, it was awesome.
So this was your second Panama Canal cruise. You did one with Holland America, am I right? Or
Royal Caribbean.
Royal Caribbean. And was it the same length as far as days?
I thought it was, but my mom said it was 12.
Okay.
12 instead. And I actually think we left out of Miami, so I think that helps. And we ended, well, there's the dates. We left out of Miami or something like that. And we ended in, I believe, Acapulco.
Okay. So I'm going off on a weird tangent here. I've looked at like other cruise lines that do the Panama Canal, and how do they, I've seen like Norwegian has it, and I think Royal Caribbean does it as well, where it's not like the Wonder, where the Wonder goes from Port Canaveral and then ends up in San Diego, and now it's doing sailings out of San Diego and eventually up to Alaska. But I've seen them where the ships actually leave from the East Coast and come back to the East Coast. So do you know how that works?
They go near the Panama Canal.
Oh, so they don't actually go through the Panama Canal?
No. Yeah, they don't. I think they go to like one of the locks, but I don't even know that they go through it because then they just have to come back. But I had booked a client on it, and I guess I don't remember. It was several years ago. I mean, it was like 5 years ago, I think. And now I don't remember. There are several lines that do it. So Holland does it. I believe Princess does it. There was a couple other lines that they go down towards Panama and actually just do a day at Panama instead of going through the locks.
Okay. But I could have sworn that they call it a Panama Canal cruise, but maybe it just said Panama on it. But sorry, that was a total strange tangent to start with, but I was just kind of curious how they did that. Yeah.
But the cruise I went on a million years ago, it literally was 1998.
Okay.
We went through the canal.
Awesome. Well, that was then. This is now. Let's talk about the cruise that you just got off of. And so let's start from the beginning. You talked about who went, your mom, your son, your husband. You guys booked concierge again this time?
We did. Yeah. And, man, it's like compared to now, the price was really good because, the prices keep going up. And so you look at what future cruises cost, and, frankly, I felt like we got a good deal.
That's awesome. And so let's just start from the beginning again. I guess you guys flew down to Orlando. You guys spent the night down at Port Canaveral. How did that work out? It
was good. We had a late flight, and actually it was a late flight that cost us, it was like the cheapest flight I think I've ever taken. And still on Delta, it just, because we picked a later time, it didn't cost anything. And so I think we arrived at like 6 o'clock into MCO. And then we had our driver that we usually use, the company we usually use, pick us up. And it was like an hour and 20 minutes about an hour at least to the port. And by the time you get your bags and get in, it was just that we got there kind of late. I would not do it the way we did it again. I know a lot of people, and we're going to talk about this in a future episode, but a lot of people want to stay in Port Canaveral or Cape Canaveral because it's so close to the port. It was still, we were kind of surprised, it was still a good 20-minute Uber ride to the port the next day. 25 minutes. And I guess I thought because the port is only 45 minutes from the airport itself, I guess I thought everything was going to be closer.
Okay.
So you sort of pass the port. Well, you do. You pass the port to go to Cape Canaveral, And it was bustling though, man. Like people were having a good time. The streets were packed. Everything looked very busy and bustling. We stayed at the Courtyard by Marriott, which basically shares a parking lot with the Hampton Inn, I believe. And that was fine. Everything was fine about that. We basically, though, got there and went to bed.
You guys end up leaving that day on the Wonder. How was the check-in, and what was that like for like all these people that are going on this cruise that it's going to be 15 days? Like, what was the vibe, I guess?
Excited,
yeah.
Crowded. So they, Port Canaveral usually opens at like 10 or 10:30 for a regular cruise. The closed loop where it's just going to somewhere and then coming right back to that port at the end. However many days these people are going for. But they didn't open our port until 11. So the first boarding time for anybody was 11. I think we got there at like 11:15 or something like that. And it was packed. And then by the time we actually finished with all the checking in and doing the things we had to do, it was really packed, like even move around packed.
Wow.
So it was a little bit different. It was exciting. Everybody was excited but because I think they started it so late, when most people their arrivals would be staggered just by virtue of there's a whole extra hour or whatever in there where the port is sort of open. They just didn't open the port. So then everybody's just standing there. I don't know. I realize the beginning of this podcast is sounding very just not uppity, but I promise it's all good. It's just, sometimes it's just when things are different, you just have to figure it out. It all was fine. It was just crowded.
Right. Okay, so you guys get on, and you guys book concierge. So did you head up to the concierge level right away, or what did you guys end up doing?
We ended up going to lunch.
Okay.
So whenever they boarded us, we went to lunch. And we ended up going right to Triton's that was right in the lobby.
So when you go to Triton's like that, obviously it's first come, first served basis. How crowded is that? How crowded is that usually compared to going up to Cabanas? Because, most people, it sounds like they go up to Cabanas. That's the first thing they're kind of thinking, getting up there and then being outside and maybe getting the buffet. So what's it like going to Triton's?
It is not crowded. So it gets more crowded as people get on the ship. But it is a quieter experience, and you don't have to fight with getting tables and your food, and everything gets to be brought to you. And obviously with my allergies, so for people that don't know, it's not really an allergy, but I'm celiac, so I can't have gluten. So we just call it a wheat allergy because people seem to understand that a little bit easier. But with that, it was just, I didn't have to fight to get food, and so it's easier to go to a restaurant where they can tell me what I can eat, and I can just eat it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That's what we did, and it was fine. It was a nice little lunch, and then we did go up to the lounge after that, and we also checked our rooms, and our rooms weren't available. And like when you're on the Fantasy and the Dream, when you're in concierge, they have those rooms basically available at 12:30 or so. I would say it was 12:30 or 12:45 by the time we were done with lunch. But they still had the lines across. Those straps that they put across the doors that say don't go, because on the 8th floor, they have obviously concierge and non-concierge all together. So I don't know what they did. Eventually, I just went under the line, and I went into the room and dropped off stuff and took pictures, and I just did it. Because our room was like right off the elevator, so the location was awesome. It was midship, right off the elevator. So that part was easy. Yeah, the first day, though, it's just doing your stuff. We didn't have to go to the hospital this time. Last time we were on Disney Cruise, we had to take my husband to the hospital, which all worked out well. But, it was nice to not do that.
Yeah. So
the lounge on the Wonder is huge. So it's like 3 times the size of the other lounges. It's incredible.
Wow. So it's 3 times the lounge, or the size of the Fantasy and the Dream, huh?
That's what I think. It's at least double. It's at least double.
Now that was part of the when they redid the Wonder, they redid that area, correct?
They did, and then they gave outdoor seating outside, which was really lovely as well, and gave an outside deck, and then it's set up a little bit differently. So the only maybe the bad part about the way the lounge is set up is that it's not one big room. It's like there's the middle room where the food and the drinks is, and then there's one room, there's a side room, there's 2 side rooms, I guess. And so the people are more dispersed, and there's less actually talking then to the other people cruising concierge. Like, I feel like on the Dream and on the Fantasy, there was more of that social element that you didn't get as much because of the way the rooms were spread out. But it's really nice. And they did take, this is what I started saying and then I got distracted or sidetracked. They took part of the Cove Cafe and turned it into the lounge.
Okay.
It's really nice though up there. Really, really nice views. Yeah, it's really nice.
So I'm going to ask you a stupid question. Do they still have a Cove Cafe type place on the Wonder then? Or is that just all part of the lounge for concierge?
They do. They just, I believe they don't have an upper part.
Okay. So I guess another question I've got, so like when you've got a Star Wars day at sea or, you know, if you're on a regular 5 or 7 day, you kind of get a big picture of what's going to happen, you know, what night Pirate Night is and everything else. Did they have anything kind of listed for you as far as the cruise went, like big events so that people could kind of plan their days, you know, ahead of time? I mean, I guess since I'm a planner, does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, so just like when you're getting on a regular cruise, they give you that first day's navigator and they tell you what meals or what movies are playing for the week. Mm-hmm. And they tell you what night what shows are and also which nights are dressier nights. They did the same thing, but they did it in 1 week increments. So we received the first week highlights in the Cruise Navigator that first day. On Saturday, we received what was going to happen the next week. So the following week, so we didn't get to know all 2 weeks at once. Mm-hmm. They gave us half at a time.
Okay.
Obviously, our schedule, I mean, we knew, and I believe online and stuff, it told us when we had Pirate Night and things like that. So we knew when that was occurring. But then they gave us that where you see it all right at a glance at the beginning of the weeks.
Okay. I'm still trying to wrap my head around 15 days. So.
Well, it really is 14 days.
Yeah, 14.
So it's 14 nights, but 14 days.
Right. Okay, well, awesome. So I guess before we go into like the day in and day out stuff, some of the stuff you did, let's just talk about like the food overall. What was your guys' rotation, and what did you guys do food-wise during your trip?
We started at Triton's, and then went to Animator's Palette, and then went to Tiana's Place. And actually, Tiana's Place was the biggest surprise for me. I wasn't expecting to really like it. I mean, I know that's horrible to say, and it's new, and it's exciting, and everybody wanted that to be their first night's restaurant. I kind of thought the music was going to be obtrusive, and it really wasn't. And it ended up being our favorite restaurant.
Really?
The music was awesome. My son is a jazz fan, apparently. He even got up and danced like in front of the stage, and at one time there wasn't even really other kids dancing, but he's like, I'm going up there to dance. And it was adorable. He loved the live music. And then Tiana comes out maybe 2 of the nights, because we're there so many, obviously. She came out 2 of the nights and did her singing, maybe 3, but at least 2. Did her singing and did her it was awesome. She's fantastic. And everything, I guess she doesn't really sing, she just talks and the guys sing and stuff like that, but she dances with the kids. What is he, an alligator?
Yeah.
So that guy comes out twice. On the last night, anybody, whoever's in Tiana's Place, depending on the number of nights of your cruise will depend, is whatever the last time you're going to be in that restaurant is when they do their Mardi Gras party. Oh, that was so much fun. And they give beads to everybody, and then the alligator guy comes back out too, and then Tiana's there and dancing, and it's really, really fun. And my kid did this too, and he went off with with our assistant waitress. It was crazy. With like he's coming out of his shell a little bit. I will jump. We did force him to go to the kids club once, and he went, and he said he had a fine time, but he went once over a 2-week cruise, and that was it.
Wow.
So, to that later, but he loved Tiana's Place. He loved it.
Awesome. Well, who doesn't
left our table, was not in view of us, and was like walking in this conga line with our waitress and with all these people. That's just something like he would never do.
He's getting older.
I know.
Well, awesome. So how was the food? So I mean, when you end up going to the same restaurants over and over again, did they change it up along the way as far as like when you got to different regions? Did they change the food up to kind of reflect that?
It never did anything fun like that.
Okay.
But it was different food every day.
Mm-hmm.
Beef, I felt like we still ate a lot of beef, and I sort of felt like the beef choices were sort of the same. I mean, they tried to word it differently or something like that, but and that still ended up being what we ate a lot. Like the appetizers were different every day. It was good, and they were different choices. So, and at the end of the cruise, like the last 3 nights, is when I felt like they had the menus that they always have on, the cruises. Like we had the chicken schnitzel that you can get pretty much on every cruise right now on Disney Cruise Line, which, man, that stuff is so good. Apparently we really like the German chicken, I guess. But they still have that same menu, but they give it to you at the very end.
Now, I'm sure you guys went to Palo. I know you guys went to Palo, but did you end up eating at the restaurants every night, or did you ever like venture out to Cabanas one night, or just to do something different, or did you end up going to the restaurants each night?
So we went to Palo for dinner. We went to Palo for brunch, and that is the compromise that my husband and I make for each other because I like brunch more, he likes dinner more, and so that's what we do. We go to each. We skipped that night, but my mom and son still went to the dining room. And we actually moved Palo. Like, we had it reserved, but then we really liked the dinner, so then that was being served the next night. And I could always see the dinner because I have to pick, as an allergy person, you have to pick your meal for the next day's dinner the night before so they can prepare it. And so I always got to see the dinner. So then I was like, our head waiter, I was like, I need you to move Palo again if you don't mind, because I want to come here for dinner tomorrow. So that happened like 3 times until there was a dinner I didn't care about as much. Then the only other night we didn't do dinner in the main dining room, and I think we just did like the quick service food that night. We wanted to go and see Frozen, which was during week 2. So they have a 6:00 show and like an 8:30 show. The 8:30 my son was not going to stay up for, and we still were putting him to bed a little bit early. I mean, we had the time changes to contend with, so everything was getting later for him as it was. So we went to the 6:00 show and skipped dinner, basically. So we ate quick service in our room and then went to the 6:00 show.
Awesome. How were your servers? I'm sure that was probably pretty fun, having the same people for that long long period of a time.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yes, they were fantastic. There was some issues in the beginning of our cruise, and I think it was stemmed upon my allergy, quote-unquote allergy meals, because they were like, there's a lot, the response is there's a lot of allergies, so it's taking a long time. Finally, I asked to speak to our head waiter, or he was coming around to check on us or something, and I go, look, as this cruise goes on, my son, we're asking for a more expedited meal, because my son will not want to sit here forever, and I don't want to disrupt the people around us by having him be crazy. Like, we need to kind of eat and get out. And we asked for an expedited meal, and then the tables around us were all getting their desserts or whatever before we could even order them, because the food was coming out so late. And we're like, where's the disconnect here? We're asking for our meal to be at the speed, and they're the same server, so clearly we know that our server can serve the food because they're doing it to them. So we said, what is it you need from us? And he goes, oh, well, it's just, they said, oh, the kitchen is backed up. And I said, well, we need the kitchen to not be backed up. Because at that point, I believe we just moved to Central Time. So we hadn't gone to Mountain Time. We hadn't gone to Pacific Time, which Pacific Time we only got to at the very end of the trip. And we did, switching subjects slightly, we moved between Central Time and Mountain Time, like several times throughout the cruise, which was weird. But we never ended up having to go to Pacific Time until basically we're off the ship. But at the time, I didn't know this. And I said, as we get further closer to California, I can't keep my son up so late. So we need to ask your chef. I mean, we're giving you our food orders the night before so they can be prepared. We need to find out how we can get this meal a little quicker. And then from then on, it was quicker. So I don't know what they did. I do know our head chef said that he got involved a bit. So anyway, that was a little bit of an issue, and then it became a non-issue. They really sped up our food and got us our plates quicker, which was nice.
No, all good points. And I mean, you go on the cruise and generally, 99% of the time, things run smoothly, and we've never had any personal issues in the dining at all. But you've always got that head waiter, and I've always wondered, like, well, what does he actually do? And that's the kind of case that I think that you would. When you said head chef, you meant the head waiter. Am I right?
Yeah, I did. I'm sorry, I meant. Well, so the chef was whining that he had too many allergies,
right?
And then the head waiter, told us that.
But and that's exactly what he's there for, to solve those kind of problems, to make your experience better. So we've never, at the end of the cruise, you get this envelope that said,
I know.
Here's your tip for the head waiter, and it's like, well, he didn't really do anything. He was nice. He said hi every time, but in your case, that's like a perfect example of when he or she could help you and make your trip better.
And anytime there's an allergy or a baby, because then they have to, which is any special needs foods, that's what the head waiters do. And then if there's any other issues, so that is really what they do. And so for people that don't have any special needs anywhere, they won't. You're correct. They're just not going to utilize them as often.
So some good points to bring up there, because we've never really talked about the head waiter and kind of what his or her job is. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's some good information there. So talking about Frozen, what was the entertainment like on the ship?
So the normal, they had Be Our Guest at the beginning. They had the Golden Mickeys. That was all during the first week. The second week, they had Frozen. They have a crew talent show, which is kind of cute. We went to a bit of it. And then they end with Dreams. So some of their performance is exactly the same as they would have, on Every Wonder Sailing. And then they had a bunch of random things in the middle that we didn't really go to. You'd think 2 weeks, man, I don't know what we did. But yeah, we pretty much missed all the shows.
Yeah.
Except for, and like I said, we went to the crew talent show for a little bit. So they had a bunch of singers. I'm looking at these navigators because they have it laid out for me. They had the music and magic. They always have a magic guy, right?
Right.
There was one guy we really wanted to go to. I don't remember. Dave got sick, just like a general cold at the beginning of the cruise. And I know that held us up the first week because he was just sort of feeling crummy. I think there was some of it, like this Philharmonic, so they, a cappella type music and stuff like that. We figured we were going to try to go to them, and I think because he wasn't feeling good, we didn't go. They had like violinists, they had music and comedy, so you know how they always do that. And then another sort of show that was like that, like an illusionist or whatever, which magic is never my thing. So I would never tend to go to that. But yeah, they had shows every night, something different. I am really surprised they didn't do Frozen more than once. Like, why wouldn't you? It is awesome. So it was during week 2. It was on Monday. It was my favorite performance I'd ever seen on a cruise ship. My son sat there and watched it like his eyes peeled on it the entire time. He was mesmerized. So you got to love that. And it's an hour long. And he sat and loved it all. So I asked them actually at one point why they didn't do it more than once. Why they didn't do that performance more than once? Because look, they're doing Beauty and the Beast twice. And they said, well, I guess they were doing some changeover with the crew and the entertainment. And so they had the next set of entertainment people on board and they were doing rehearsals. So they didn't have time to do the performances twice because they were doing rehearsals. I think is a cheater answer.
They're getting ready for the Alaska sailings and everything up there with the new group, I guess, huh?
Yes.
That's good to hear because I remember I saw Toy Story the first time we went when they had Toy Story on the Wonder up in Alaska, and it was, I'm going to be honest, it was okay. I mean, it wasn't bad. It was okay. And I don't want to step on anybody's toes if they loved it, but to me it seems like they're really stepping up their game because when we went and saw Tangled on the Magic and now hearing what you're saying about Frozen on the Wonder, it seems like they're really putting a lot of energy and really making these shows to be a little bit more quality. Not that they weren't bad before, but just a little bit more quality than what they were before. So that's good to hear.
And I felt like the Aladdin on the Fantasy, while a bit dated, was really good as well.
Okay.
So we actually did see that show one time. All those fantasy cruises, I think we saw once.
Right.
But that's enough. I would have seen Frozen more than once, though.
Did they incorporate anything else with Frozen? Like so now, like with Tangled, they do they turn the bar into the Snuggly Duckling, so they kind of, branch it out past the show. Did they do anything like that with Frozen on the ship?
I am thinking. I don't think so.
Okay. It's just the show.
Yeah, I think it was just the show. They have Anna and Elsa, the meet and greet, which they always have, where they take, and I don't know if you've ever gone to that because you have older boys, but they take Animator's palette and they make it wintry, and they have a little backdrop, and they have the characters, and it's a pre-ticketed event.
Well, okay, so we talked a little bit about entertainment. We talked about food. What other things did you guys... Any other experiences on the ship? I guess we could talk about the kids' club quick. Blake went once, and that was it. Did a lot of adventures with Grandma?
He did a lot of adventures with Grandma. Uh-huh. We had those excursion days, which we'll talk about in a minute. And back to the entertainment. Let me go back to the entertainment.
Sure.
They had a lot of great musical acts. So one of our favorites was a guy named Ed Harvey, which I was trying to interview for the show. And I think we saw him like the second night that my mom stayed and babysat. And we went and listened to his music and stuff. We loved his music. And he played a guitar, and he sang, and he had, like, different, he would warn us about it. Oh, because we heard him at the pool the one day, so maybe this was it doesn't make any sense. So maybe this is the first sea day or the second sea day, something like that. And so a couple of days into the cruise, we heard him at the pool while we were, like, above. So he was below us and singing, and we thought it was more people, because then we saw him at the Cadillac Lounge that night, and it was just him. And I was like, God, I thought for sure I heard more people singing. And then he even said at the end, if you think there's more than just me, if you've heard me around, it's because I have whatever kind of microphone he has that makes him sound like there's more than one of him. So I thought that was really cool. But he was going to come. He agreed to do an interview with us for our show, but he needed to ask Disney, and Disney never got back to him. So we tried, and he agreed. But we loved Ed Harvey, and he's on there for months and months and months. So everybody should get to see him. They had another act, like a male-female duo group that did singing that were fantastic. They did it in the lot. They would sing in the lobby and then in the lounges. And then there were a few other people, but we really liked the musical entertainment. So, Kids Club. Yeah, so Blake went they had a preschool time for kids aged 3 to 5, so we figured that would be a good time for him to go. And he went for the 2 hours. We were just about to go pick him up for lunch when we got the message that he wanted to be picked up, so we were, like, picking him up then anyway. And he said he had fun, but that he did not want to return.
Oh, no.
And we kind of thought we could, like, talk him into it with other things. It was just so weird. The trip went so fast. How does a 2-week cruise go fast? We had the port days. So I guess we can talk about that now.
Well, let's just start off. You guys, the first day you leave Port Canaveral, and the next day you're at Castaway Cay. So what did you guys do there?
Well, we went to our cabana. Shocking. We actually, Dave and I ran the... walked. We very much walked the 5K. And I don't remember. Oh, I forgot to put sunblock on or something on me. Like, I made sure he had it. So then I was like, well, let's just, while we were waiting for the race to start, let's just go to the cabana and get the sunblock. So then we had to, like, catch up to the race. And apparently it did start, and we didn't really know it started. So anyway, we, like, end up being one of the last ones to start, or the very last ones to start the 5K. So we did that. And then our family my mom and son were meeting us at the cabana later. Like, I don't know, they were putting their bathing suits on, because it takes a while to get off the ship. So they did that and met us up there. We did our 5K and then just had a fantastic day at the beach.
Is Blake big enough to go to Pelican Plunge? Can you do that yet? Or is that on your guys' radar at all?
It is not.
Okay.
I think he would be big enough, size-wise. I think that he is not ready for that experience.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So we're just sort of like the salt water in the face and all that stuff like that. He's not ready for that.
Okay.
And he is a wimp. Jumping to the end, we went to Disneyland. We went on Radiator Spring Racers, and he was like, this is great, but I never want to go on this again. It was too intense for him.
Yeah, give him a year or two. He'll be the first one in line. So,
yeah, I hope. And then, he's just he's timid or whatever it is. He's just not into it, and certainly I'm not going to force him.
No, you don't want to do that.
Oh, at some point, Dave and Blake did go. Oh, no, my mom did. I think Dave was supposed to, and then my mom ended up taking them. They went to that splash pad and had a great time. It's like he didn't want to leave it. You know, they have that splash pad. Well, you might not know because your kids are bigger, but they have a splash pad, like, around the back of the beach.
Oh, yeah,
or whatever.
yeah. Yeah, I know what you're talking about now.
Little kids can play in there. So he had a blast in there. And then he and I played in the water, and he made sandcastles and, you know, put water and sand on my feet, you know, like kids do. It was awesome. It was such a great day.
Well, I know that's your happy place, so I'm glad you guys had a good, you know, you weren't, there wasn't high winds or thunderstorms or anything like that keeping you away from it, so.
No, it was perfection. In fact, the coolest thing we got on this cruise, they give you some stuff, and we'll talk about things unique to the Panama Canal cruise at the end of our recording here, the end of the episode. But one of the things they give us is this lovely brochure. It's so cool. And it told us where we went every day and what the weather was and, like, the times we were there. So apparently on Castaway Cay it was 77 and it was sunny. And so maybe 77 would seem cool, but it was perfect because it wasn't too hot. It was a perfectly sunny, beautiful day for my happy.
Oh, yeah, it sounds like the perfect temperature to just kind of hang out at the beach, read a book, and whatever else, you know, splash around in the water a little bit. So, well, awesome. So Castaway Cay, then you do 2 days at sea, and then your first port really is Cartagena, Colombia. How was that?
It was good. So we had really nice weather there, too. It was like, had a breeze, but was sunny, and apparently a high of 82, according to my chart. We booked that hotel and basically beach day.
Right.
It was called the Americas, I think. Las Americas Pool and Beach Getaway. So this was Cartagena, Colombia. They took you on a tour. So Cartagena is like a walled city, much like these other ones that are trying to protect themselves from invaders and stuff like that. And so they did, as for the bus on the way to the hotel, we stopped at the fort, one of the big fort, I guess, on the island, and they let us off the bus. And before they let us off the bus, they said, look, the vendors are very intense here. So just be firm, just say no, thank you. You know, you might have to be a firm no, but they'll sometimes put the item in your hand. And then they want you to buy it because it's in your hand. I appreciated that our host gave us this lecture. So we get off, and it was like 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes. It was just quick, go take a picture. We get off, we take a picture at this fort. Oh, and she also said there's going to be people, like, with the Colombian, like, ladies dressed up, you know, and with, like, the fruit on their head and that whole situation. And she said they want to take a picture with you, but they charge you. So if you take the picture, you have to pay them. So just be prepared. So I thought all of these warnings were great. Those vendors were intense. I am not a person who's afraid of traveling to places, but I think also because I had my son, I was just a bit on guard, and I didn't like it at all. They were crazy. And at one point, they put, like, maracas in my son's hand. Oh, no. So we ended up holding Blake because they just sort of swarm you, and I didn't feel safe there. I sort of felt like, you know, I guess it happens, but the idea in, like, Italy or whatever, that they have the gypsies and they try to distract you and then do something so they can rip you off, I just sort of felt like that was going to happen, which is awful. It's just an awful feeling, right? Mm-hmm. And I guess, like, once you're out of this little public bottom of the fort place, it's not so bad, but right at that bottom of the fort, they just swarm you because they want to sell their wares or whatever. So I didn't like the feeling. They put the maracas in my kid's hand. I, like, shoved him. I pulled him out, and it was like, no. And that guy, I think, was afraid that I was going to injure him because he got to my kid. It's like, leave the kid alone. So it was fine. So we go to the fort. But then after we go to the hotel was awesome. We had such a great day there. My son loved the pool. They actually found some life jackets for us so, like, they could play. They had a little sand. They had a beach. And then they had a sand, like a playground for kids. And I don't even think we ended up making it down that far. They had a little kid-sized wading pool. They had a pool with, like, a slide. And then they had this other more quiet pool. It was a fantastic day. Then they fed us, and the lunch was good. And I got to practice my Spanish. Still not great at speaking Spanish, but I managed to explain to everybody that I can't have gluten and that I need gluten-free food. So those conversations went well, and I didn't get sick. and I had a very interesting meal. It's always those adventures, right? Like, what are you guys served? And it was really good, though. And then they did, like, a performance with their music and dancers and a band, and it was my son loved watching it. And the fruit, oh my God, the fruit was like the best fruit I've ever had in my life. Man, that pineapple could not have been more perfect.
It was like so fresh, right?
So fresh and so good. So good. So that was a lot of fun.
So a perfect day. How long, when did you guys get back to the ship on a day like that? How long did that kind of go?
So I think we had to go down to our meeting place at like 8:30 or something, 8:15, 8:30, something like that. And then we got back at like 1:30. That was one of the things. They took us on this like long bus ride on the way back. And they took us back into the walled city, which I guess is fine. I guess we got to see it. We got to see some churches. It was a tour. And it was more than of a tour than I thought we were going to. I think than anybody thought we were going to have. And then she was like, now, do you guys want to get out for 10 minutes and go shopping? And everybody on the bus was like, no.
No, we're just ready to go back to the ship. Yeah.
So, yeah, we basically were back at 1:30 or whatever, and all aboard was 2:45.
Okay, so from Cartagena, then you get the big day where you actually get to go through the Panama Canal. Why don't you set that up as far as, did they have people on ahead of time that you were able to go to, like lecturers? Or did that kind of start the day of? Or how did that work for preparing you to go through the Panama Canal?
They did have lectures, and I think they only had one because there wasn't a lot of time, there was just the 2 sea days prior to the Panama Canal actual crossing. So they set you up with a lecture, and then they put it on TV all the time too, so you got to watch it, which was awesome. And we ended up not being able to go to the lecture. I don't remember why, but we watched it on TV. And then they did 2 more lectures after, where they discussed more. According to this chart, we made it to we entered the first lock at about 8:53 in the morning, and I believe there was some traffic. So for sure there was a ship just in front of us, and I think it took about 3 hours to get through like the first of the 3 sets of locks, and then you go through, I guess, 2 hours, so 11:33 on my chart. Then you go through the lake. The lake was so much longer than I remembered it being. Obviously, it was 20 years ago. It was a lot of the day was just spent passing on this lake. And then we went through the last of the locks at 5 o'clock, and then we were finished about 7. And so our dinner had started, and they actually asked me if I was sick because I just kept leaving the table, and because I wanted to go watch. So, yeah, I would my food was ordered, so I didn't have to be there at the very beginning. And then I would eat like a dish, and then I would go back out and wait for whatever, and then I'd come back. And so I did that a lot. Because it was just, I was watching it. And then it got dark. But it was a cool day. So first of all, some of the things that Disney does, they gave everybody on the ship a lithograph about something saying that you're going through the Panama Canal. So every cabin got that. They sold postcards and they sold stamps. So you could, bad to say, but in concierge, they gave us some postcards and they gave us the stamps. So they gave all of our cabins 2 stamped postcards. So you could send a postcard. I think we had until noon or something from the Panama Canal. We haven't received those yet, by the way. And so we did that. We wrote out some postcards and sent them. You could also get your passport stamped. They had one of their immigration people on board until like 2 o'clock, and they were stamping our passport. So that was fun. So we went and did that. And then what else did they have for the Panama Canal? There was like this excitement around the ship. Everybody was really into it. And, the people were outside on the decks or you were watching in your own cabin, but then you're talking to the people next to you in their cabins, and everybody was just like an energy that existed on that day. It was really awesome. I
remember you showing, or when you were tweeting out or on Facebook somewhere about, they had a photographer down on the dock, and they were taking pictures of people on the ship.
Yes. So I was like, I had it on my list, and whatever. So yeah, I guess when they got the pilot on, they also got the photographer off, and they had 2 photographers, and they were taking our pictures. So they would call out. They'd be like, okay, you 2 right there, or you guys look down, and then they matched it to your cabin. Or if you were standing, I guess, on the 4th floor, they matched it to to who you were anyway, because they have your face. They have their face recognition stuff. But isn't that cool?
That's awesome.
I feel like that's the Disney difference.
Did you guys get a picture, or did you guys buy one of it? Well, you had the package, right? You had the photo package.
did get the photo package this time.
Yeah.
And so, that was fun. And so, yes, our pictures are on there. I have not had enough time to even look at it. That's sad. It's bad. 2 weeks. We briefly looked at the beginning and then haven't had a chance since. Oh, you can do a swim across the Panama Canal.
What?
Which they do. Yeah. It's not the real Panama Canal, but they take, a cup of water, of Panama Canal water, and they throw it in the pool.
Oh.
And then they shut down the pool, and it's like at noon. We didn't do this, but you could swim across and you got a certificate, I believe.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's really cool to me.
So all those little fun touches that they did. So as you're going through, did they kind of give you kind of a running commentary over the intercom system, kind of like telling you what's happening or what's coming next?
Yes, they did, and you could hear it from the outer decks. We could not hear it from our cabin. We could hear that discussions were occurring, but we couldn't actually hear the words they were saying. We spent a lot of the time through the locks on our cabin. I did pop up to the concierge lounge viewing, and then I went to the front and the back at various other times as well, just to see that experience. I don't think I went to the actual front, but I went to the back. So just to see it from different angles. But yes, he talked. We missed though most of that. It was awesome. And they have, you can see, because and I just don't remember if this is how it was in the old locks, but they have these pools now where they basically lower the water, or they use these pools, so they're just reusing the same water, and then they even you out with the next lock. So that water lowers, and then you get lowered to that level. I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but they don't have to rise and lower you the whole way. They just have to rise and lower you halfway to the next lock. And then they open that door, the water, you can even see it, when the two waters are matching each other. It's just so cool. And then you go into the next lock, and they do the same thing, where they're either raising you up or lowering you down based on which way you're going.
Amazing.
It's so cool. It's so cool. And you don't feel it. You don't feel it as that the ship is really moving. The only way you even know is because you're looking at the things around you, or you're looking at the wall, and you can see more of the wall or less of the wall.
So when you go through each one of those locks, when you move from one to the next, is it just the Wonder by itself, or are you in there with other ships, or how does that work?
No, each lock only holds one ship.
Okay.
And then there's a tugboat, so there is a tugboat with you.
That's kind of pulling you along, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because when we were going in, I'm like, we're not going to fit. There's no way. There's no way this ship is going to fit in this size space, because you can see it. You can see where you're going. And my husband was making fun of me going, I think they haven't figured out. But I was like, there's no way we fit.
Yeah.
I realized I can't even express the excitement of how cool that day was, but it was really, really cool.
Well,
my son enjoyed it too, just watching, and yeah, it was really awesome.
Well, what an amazing day. So you go from that to back to another day at sea, and then you guys end up in Costa Rica. And from what I remember, you guys didn't have anything. You didn't have too much planned for Costa Rica that day.
We didn't, and I didn't have a lot of confidence in what this port was like. But actually, this port is a whole city. They even have a straw market that they do on Sunday, and you can tell it's the locals that actually go to these markets even. Plus, there were ships. There was another ship with us that day. I want to say it was Norwegian, perhaps. It was a cool town. And then people went off and did stuff from there. There was also a beach right there. So some people went to that beach. We ended up, like you said, doing nothing. But we walked to the grocery store. And this is my pro tip for everybody. So at the little straw market that was right off of the pier, people bought coffee. Because you're in Costa Rica, you buy coffee. And I believe our waiter, somebody, I don't know who it was, but somebody bought coffee for $10 US for about a pound of coffee. I, at the grocery store, got one of those bags that had just less than a pound. I got 3 of them for $12.
Wow.
So go to the grocery store. So basically, we got off the ship, and for us, I was going to look on my phone because we turned it on that day. I was just going to use the map to find, a store, and there'd be one somewhere. But they had a map, right when you got off the port, and it had a sign, and it told you where, the shopping center was, and then we got to that street, and there was the supermercado or whatever right there, so it was awesome. And then I just used my credit card, and so I checked on the ship, and that with the exchange, I paid $12.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Have you brewed it yet?
I have. So I brewed my first bag, so I bought 3 different types, because I wasn't sure what to buy. There were 2 that were called reserved that were reserved, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And like one said it came from this mountain of something. So I brewed the smallest bag first, or the least exciting of them. And it tastes fine. It tastes good. It tastes like coffee. I remember from 20 years ago that the Costa Rican coffee was like a memorable experience. So far, my coffee is not a memorable experience. But it's good.
Yeah.
But I'm excited. I'm just about done with this bag. So then I'm going to be able to get to the second of, the bags. And then I'm wondering if it's going to be different. I am excited about that. Am I going to see a difference between the reserve coffee and basically regular Costa Rican coffee? I think it tastes good. It's just it's not a memorable experience.
Right. But it's fun to bring stuff like that back from where you've been, and then it kind of brings those memories back, and it kind of takes you back to where you being there and everything else. I think that's kind of a neat thing to do when you come back from places.
Yeah. And it was so inexpensive. I feel like we bought something else at that grocery store too. I cannot remember exactly, but I felt like there was one other thing purchased, and it was still $12.
Okay. So there you go.
Awesome.
Good tip. Skip the touristy area and go to the grocery store where the locals are. Well, so then you end up at 3 days at sea, and you guys hit Mexico from there. So you're into Puerto Vallarta and Cabo San Lucas. Let's talk about these two ports quick. And did anything stand out for you there?
Everybody went to Walmart in Puerto Vallarta. Like, literally everybody. All the passengers, all the crew. It was across the street. And if you talk to somebody later, everybody was at Walmart. So we all bought vanilla and whatever else people needed. So that was funny. Some guy on the ship was like, the people working here don't speak English. I'm like, you're at Walmart in Mexico. Do you expect when people come to our stores that we all speak Spanish or whatever language they're... And then he was like, oh, yeah, okay, good point. I'm like, we're not in a tourist area. You're not at your tourist tour. You're at Walmart. So I helped them shop, and that was the end of that. But it was a nice day. It was a nice day. We went to the Hyatt. It was an all-inclusive day. It was fine. It was good.
How did the Hyatt compare to the place you were at in Cartagena? Because it's kind of the same thing, right? Basically like a hotel and with the pool set up and kind of an experience like that, correct?
Yeah, I feel like the Hyatt overall was sort of better quality, but frankly, their internet didn't work, and we could never really get it to connect and stuff to actually work. They closed their buffet from 12 to 1, and everybody had to be back on the bus at like 1:20 or something.
Oh.
So it was weird. We burned my son's mouth with guacamole, but then because I didn't realize it was hot and I couldn't eat it until I was told I could eat it, and then my husband, he doesn't eat guacamole, so he didn't try it at first, and it was much spicier than we thought it would be based on its smell and look. So as a tip, check your guacamole. But then the waiter felt so bad about my son's mouth that he brought us the biggest vat of guacamole and got me safe gluten-free chips that weren't fried in a shared fryer. And so it was like a super win for that day. It was awesome. Cabo San Lucas is a cool town. So I'm moving on to the next day. It is a really cool town. So it's a tender port. So, basically what they do is you go and get tickets, and then you wait in this theater until your ticket number's called. If you have a tour, you don't need to do that. And if you're in concierge, you don't need to do that. They take you off whenever you want to leave. So I guess that's important to people, they should keep that in mind. We did a hotel day and tour, and I fell. I took I slid, how everything in Mexico is marble. And I was taking a picture of this ship, and I came back to walk back down this little ramp to get back to where we were sitting, and I slipped, and I really put a hole in my knee.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was really bad, really bloody. It turned into a whole thing. I had ended up going to see their little doctor at this hotel. Their staff was amazing. This was Breathless, which is an AM resort, so they own Secrets and Dreams. They were amazing. And I was totally sober when I fell. And I have a huge scar, and still on my foot was all bloody, my knee, there was sand everywhere. It was an experience. But they gave me some anti-inflammatories and some pain relief drugs, but not narcotics, but just, like Advil. and we cleaned it out, and that, man, there was all the sand. Of course, I slid like into something with sandpaper, like to keep you from sliding.
Oh no.
Slid onto it. Oh my, it was awful. But that hotel was amazing. They really were amazing. Their food was so good. People could consider going to stay there. They're a bit more of a party hotel, and they do sell day passes for everybody else too. So people can just go and buy a day pass there. I did a tour as well. And then they have a Secrets, which I think is a bit more of a lower key, but still really, but the food was really good. I got to speak my Spanish some more there. It was a great little fun day. And we thought we got ripped off by the taxi because they charged us $12 to get to this hotel, which was around the bay. I'm like, well, they just ripped us off because that's where we just got off the ship. But then I put it in the phone, and it really was like a 40-minute walk. We walked back, but because you have to walk around this marina, it takes the 40 minutes. So I guess they didn't rip us off after all.
Did you get to spend any time downtown Cabo itself too, or was it just kind of driving through it as you saw it?
Just driving through it.
Okay. Yeah, it's a great little town. I love Cabo, so it's a great place to go. You know, even if you don't go on a cruise, just to if you can make it down there for a weekend, it's a great weekend place to go.
Well, if you're from your part of the country.
Yeah, I know it's a little bit more. You know, it's kind of like, you know, like when I lived on the East Coast, like a lot of New Yorkers or whatnot, they'd, you know, pop down to the Bahamas or whatever else for a weekend. It's kind of like that for us, and it's really big that way for LA. That's like a weekend place for people down in the LA, San Diego area.
Yeah, the town was great. There was like people walking everywhere. Seemed like a great place to spend the day.
Yeah, lots of fun activities to do if you're like more outdoorsy. You can go fishing, ATV riding, horseback riding, snorkeling, all kinds of fun things to do there. So Cabo's just a great town.
They have that arc right there that people go to.
Right.
The sea lions, oh my gosh. So it must be because these boats all feed them, but like the sea lions hop right up on the boats.
Oh, really?
So we saw a lot of sea lions.
Wow.
In the Bay Area, and there's some they'll just jump right on to like the platform because they're trying to get food, I guess.
So then you end up with one more sea day, and then you're on to San Diego. So
and that day was cold. That last sea day, I guess we just got to use it as a data pack.
Okay.
And Disney got to sell a bunch of sweatshirts to people. It was cold, but it was a great cruise. It went so fast. Look at even this telling of the story. Well, it took forever, I guess, but we read a lot of books. So I think my husband said he read like 6 or 7 books. I read 3. My son played in the room a lot, and he played at Grandma's, and they did their adventures. It was just a great cruise.
Any other tips you can think of for somebody going on a Panama Canal cruise that you can think of to prepare themselves for it as they may be going back on the eastbound one here coming in a couple months?
Okay, so there's a couple of things. They do something called so you know how they have the characters where you can go take your pictures with the characters? Well, they have a ton of different characters. Like Marvel characters were there. They did Pixar characters one day. They did 2 times. They did Mickey and Friends in the morning. And the line is only open for 15 minutes. So you have to get in line before the 15 minutes is up. And however long the line takes, they'll get you. But there's like, you can see it on I think it's on my Twitter picture right now. All of the main characters will pose for a picture for you. So you get to have them all. Now, they don't sign anything at that one. For every family, they only do 1 picture. So you can't do like, you know, I want 2 with this kid, 1 with us. You can't do any of that. It's like you get 1 picture, but you get them all. And then on Pirate Night was the other day they did it. And they had Pirate Mickey and Minnie and a couple of other ones. So we went and did that. It was super cool. They also have special guests that they'll have on. Like for our cruise, they had Paige O'Hara, who is Belle, the original Belle from Beauty and the Beast. And they talked, her and her husband Michael, I don't remember his last name. He's a Broadway singer as well. But they did like 3 little interviews at different times. I mean, they packed that house. That they were so engaging and just open and gave you so much. And I guess they do this on those longer cruises where they'll bring one person, like a Disney legend of some sort, who can then talk about the experiences and just talk about working for Disney and stuff like that. It was awesome. It was really, really cool.
Is that something you have to sign up ahead of time, or is it just like first come first serve to get there and listen to him talk?
First come first serve.
Okay.
And like every seat was used.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was really cool. And they signed, so I guess Paige sold, Disney Fine Arts bought some of her stuff, so she sold stuff. So she, then they had lithographs made of it, and she signed them. I mean, they were just lovely people. It was awesome. Dave and I went to every of those lectures, every one of those. They do a kids sleepover in the kids club. So, and this is the other thing, the pools. The pools were awesome. There was, like, nobody in them. The adult pool, I think, always had more people than the kids pool in them because there were so many less kids. But they do a kids sleepover in the kids club. This is a ticketed event. You need a ticket for it. I think you sign up or you get them the first day. Whatever it is, if you think your kid's going to want to go, make sure you get a ticket. And they do sell out, or they do close it out. There's no cost, but there's only so many kids. So, and then they'll do a waiting list. You can get your kid on it that way if you want. But they do a sleepover. They also do adult exclusive open house times at the kids club, which I think we intended to go to and never did for whatever reason. I think they were just too late at night. They did a green slime thing one day, and then they did green slime for adults. So, like, the adults could go and figure out the green slime. So I thought that was really cool. See what others. I think that's kind of it. I had actually been gifted because there was kind of an issue with our shower in our room. So they gifted us a pass to that rainforest room. And could you believe it? 14 nights, never made it.
Oh, no. Wait, is it still good?
No.
Or does it have an expiration date?
Nice. I could send it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just told them, I'm sorry, I couldn't make it. She's like, well, I'm glad you told us because then we don't get, revenue hit for it. But I ended up taking a shower in the spa one of the days. And that is actually a great option for people if they are too busy or, they need more people to get ready than they have time. So if you have a bigger family, they have curtained off areas. They have like razors in there for people. They have flip-flops so that you can use their own shoes. They're not even flip-flops, but they're whatever, shoes. So you don't have to walk on the floor. They really thought of everything in there.
Was that your first time in there?
First time taking a shower in there.
Yeah, okay.
Do you take a shower in the spa often?
Actually, when I go work out at the gym, usually I'll go work out at the gym, and they've got a couple showers there. They've got all the stuff there that you need, like you said, razors and shaving cream, even, and a shampoo and all that kind of stuff, and like you said, the flip flops, and they even have bathrobes too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yes. Yeah, you got to have bathrobes.
Yeah.
So I felt like the only thing missing was like a little shelf for my glasses.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that day I was wearing my glasses.
Yeah, but then they have lockers there too, so you can put your stuff in the lockers. And so I've used it, I guess, when I've gone to the gym. So I've actually done something that you haven't done before on the ship.
I'm sure you did a lot of things, like work out in the gym. We did not work out in the gym. We did work out on the track, the deck 4 or whatever. We did that quite a bit.
I think that's the better option, anyways. You get a better view. You're outside. That's nicer.
I watched them one day taking boxes of water and raising them up during my walk to the lifeboats. So I guess, they stock those in case they're ever needed, but they had like expiration dates on them. So I'm sure that's what they were doing. They were just reloading the next set. So there was this huge crate of boxes and they were raising them all up.
Wow.
It was really cool. Like they put forth a lot of effort into certain things.
They definitely do, and that's why they get the ratings that they do. It's pretty amazing. I just saw where the Dream it has never had. It has always gotten a perfect rating on all the CDC stuff. And
isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's like the only ship that's always gotten a perfect record, which is pretty amazing. Not that the other ones have had worse records. It's just the Dream is just above and beyond, which is kind of amazing. So
I heard that on whatever I was listening to that I heard it on, and then I thought of you because I know you're really into that.
yeah. We'll have to do a show on that someday, maybe.
Yeah.
So I got one last question for you. After being on the ship that long, was it weird getting off and having to go back to real life, sort of? Of course, you went to Disneyland. We could talk about that on the next show. But what was that like? I guess after being on it for so many days.
It was weird having internet again.
Yeah, okay.
So there was that. But, yeah, I think because we went to Disneyland for the 3 nights after, it wasn't the end of our trip, really wasn't the end of our trip.
Wasn't as dramatically, boom, get on your airplane and back home. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that was a perfect way to do it. My son absolutely loved Disneyland. So it was great. Just I had one of my notes is you leave your cabin and there's Disney music, and awesome Disney music always playing in the halls. It just brings you happiness.
Well, it sounds like just an amazing trip.
Amazing trip.
Would you do it again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would. I mean, the issue is now is we don't have 2 weeks off, but yeah, I would.
Right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up from here and just leave it at that. We'll come back and talk about Disneyland next time, because I'd love to hear what your thoughts were about Disneyland Cars Land, because I know that Blake's a big Cars fan, so I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. And just welcome back to the show, Christy. It's good to have you back.
Thank you. It's nice to be back.
Yeah, so before we leave, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody where they can get a hold of you, and we'll kind of close out the show.
My contact information is in the About section on packyourpixiedust.com. I am on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram with the same name. Facebook or Twitter you can find me both ways now, but the actual name is PackYR Pixie Dust. And yeah, come chat and let's talk Disney cruises.
Yeah, definitely. And get over to the Instagram page. I know you've been doing a lot of work with that too, so getting a lot of your pictures up from the cruise and whatnot. So it's a great place to kind of go back and see either through Facebook or through Instagram to see a lot of what Christy was talking about today.
Yeah. And we have a DCL_podcast, that's how it's set up, a Instagram page. I am the one who actually posts those pictures, just in case anybody's wondering. And we try to just post different random pictures.
Well, cool. Anything else, Christy, before we get out of here today?
That's it.
Awesome.
Have fun. Cruise on.
Cruise on. Well, thanks again for it was a lot of fun talking and reliving your Panama Canal cruise. One of these days, hopefully we can do it as well. And I want to wish you the best of luck as you get caught back up with life, and we'll see you soon on our next podcast.
Thanks, and you have fun on your cruise.
All right. Take care, Christy. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.